Hello, and welcome to another coding tutorial on Code.org's App Lab. In today's lesson, we're going to be working with a small application that takes in some keyboard input and does something in response to it. Now, a quick note about that. Since this is meant to simulate a phone application, you can see the phone right here, knowing how to handle keyboard input is not really the most useful thing for a phone. However, chances are pretty good that at some point in your programming career, you will program something for a computer. So I do think it's good to have a little bit of experience working with keyboard inputs in advance. So to start off today, I'm going to start by going to the Design tab, and we're going to do some unconventional things here. Firstly, I'm going to grab two labels and throw them out here on the screen. And the reason why this is going to be kind of odd is because these two labels, I'm not going to use them as labels. Instead, I'm going to have this one at the top be some kind of little character, and this one down here at the bottom going to be a finish line. And we're going to have this character cross that finish line. In fact, finish line is the name of my project. Alright, so this bottom one here, we're going to drag it down to the bottom here and stretch it out, maybe make it a little taller. So that way it takes up the whole width, or it can do less if you like. I'm going to get rid of the text, then I'm going to scroll down to background color, which is under properties, and you can just clear all that out. Easiest way to do this is a number sign, Shift 3 if you're on a Windows computer, and then do 6 zeros. The easiest way to do that. Now you could also do it with just 3 zeros, but let's do 6. Just makes it easier for if you get into that habit, so that way you have all 6 numbers later on. Anyways, so we have this this black finish line here. I'm going to go up to this other label, and I'm going to get rid of its text also. Go down to background color, and let's make it also black. Again, that's number sign with 6 zeros. You just hit enter or click off. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, so it'll be 60 wide by maybe 80 tall, or 60 tall. There we go. Nice little square. We're going to name this one Hero. It's going to be our hero. It's going to try and cross the finish line. Let's go down to the other label, and we're going to change its ID to be Finish Line. Okay, so if you have this, two labels for hero and finish line, both colored black, or if you like, you can click on one of the labels and click on the little color next to the background color. You can change its color very, very easily. You could also just change the numbers themselves. I might go ahead and make this be a little more red, for instance. There we go. Alright, we're done basically here. One last thing I want to do is on screen 1, that's not very informative, so I'm going to change the ID of screen 1 to main. You don't need to do this, but it will help. Alright, so at this point let's go to code, and let's actually begin coding. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want a new onEvent, and this onEvent is going to be on the main screen. So we go to main here, and we're going to do key down as the type of event. That's for whenever you press a keyboard button down. They also do have things like key up and key press, but let's not worry about those right now. Let's just focus on the down, the actual action of holding a key down. Alright, and let's begin. So we have main and key down. We're going to put an if statement inside here, and I want you to expand it by pressing that plus sign twice so that we have 4 blocks for our if statement. Alright, let's do this. First thing we're going to do is we're going to need to get what is actually occurring. So, and we know that this thing will go off whenever a key is pressed. However, how do we know what was pressed? How do we get to differentiate that information? And I'll show you. It's actually a little bit complicated. So if you go up to the function text up here, click inside the white box next to it, and type in the word event. Just click off of it. That's going to make a brand new variable named event, and that event actually represents the entirety of the click event. And what I mean by that is, let's say we want to check and see if the user has pressed, let's just say A for now. So I'm going to go here to math, do the comparison, the equality operator, and then the left side I'm going to put in event dot key. And that right there is going to give me the left hand side, which is going to be what key I actually pressed. And then the right, I'm going to do in quotes a lowercase a. So now what's happening here is if the user presses and holds A, something will happen. Now let's just get a quick verification on that one. So this is a terrible way to do it, but I do like doing this way, so that's what we're going to do. I'm just going to drop a button event in here. This creates a brand new button. So if I click run down here and press A, and again, this won't show up in our final program, but if I press A, it should create a button. So let's see. There it is. I pressed A, there's a button. And look at that, more buttons as I hold down A. And of course this is freaking out now because there's a lot of warnings when you make a bunch of buttons with the same exact ID. But we're not going to include that in the final program anyway, so we're just going to take that and drag it out. Drag it out of this workspace. Alright. Now, some of you might be familiar with the traditional kind of gamer layout of WASD. The idea being, if the user presses presses W, the hero goes up on the screen. If they press A, the hero goes to the left, S makes it go down, and D goes to the right. It's basically kind of like the arrow keys, but with the left hand instead. The idea would be that the gamer would be using their left hand to control the movement of their character, WASD, and the right hand could use the mouse and look around. Popular among first-person shooters and such. Alright, so just to make it a little bit easier, I want you to grab this whole equality operator, orange box, and drag it down to the second if statement. In the first if statement, I want you to drag another equality operator out from the math toolbox. Event.key on the left, and on the right, oops, that was an accident. Didn't seem to cause any problems. Okay, then on the right, quote, lowercase w, end quote. That's actually something pretty important. If you make this a capital, for whatever reason, it will not work. Here, let me show you real quick. Do the button test again. So here I am pressing W. Oh yeah. Here I am pressing W, and as you see it doesn't work. Then I change it to be a lowercase w, and now it works again. So we're going to bring that back. If you're following along with me, sorry about that. But get it back to where you have 4 if statements. And the first one would be if event key equals w. Second one would be else if event.key equals a. So on and so forth. Drag that button out of there. Let's do the third slot here. We're going to do event.key if it equals s. And of course this last one down here is D, but you'll notice that we can't put anything in here. Now, if you really want to, follow along with me for this. I'm going to put in, for consistency's sake, make it more readable, I'm going to go up here, I'm going to put the D in here. So I'll go up to show text up here in the upper right. And then it'll transform this to looking just like this text, normal code. After else, I want you to type in if, parenthesis, event, dot key, equals D, in parenthesis. And there you go. It looks just like these other two here, right? And very similar to that one. Just there's no else in the first one because it's the first of the block. Alright, let's go back to show blocks. If you didn't do that with me, that's totally fine. You don't actually need to do that. But here we are. WASD is now here. Alright, so let's handle now some movement. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a variable. We're going to put in var x and var y. Please change them to x and y. I'm going to set these two variables equal to, here it is, get x position and get y position. Make sure it's get x position of the hero and get y position of the hero. And then I'm going to go over here. I'm going to grab two set property commands. And I'm going to set the property of the hero, his x, to x plus, let's just say 13 for now. Set property of the hero is y to y plus 0. And we're going to see what that looks like first. And no, this is definitely not how we're going to end on, but for now, let's just go over here and hit run. So when we press W, the idea is it's going to create two variables to get the x and y position of the hero. So that's going to be this upper corner right here. Then it's going to change the x and y properties of the hero to be 13 more on the x, so it's going to go to the right, and 0 more on the y, so it won't go up or down. And let's just see if that happens. So I press W, press it again, press and hold this time, and as you see, it's going right off the edge of the screen. Okay, that's perfect. If you have that working like that, that's good. Now, let's reset this and let's discuss. You might be wondering why on earth is, especially for you gamers, probably wondering why W, the thing at the top that looks like it should go up, is having me go to the right. And you're also probably wondering why we did anything with y, because, well, we didn't change y at all. Plussing something by 0 doesn't change it. So here's the reason. Firstly, we plussed y by 0 because we're not going to keep this here. I'm going to show you what we do in just a moment. As for why I had this do W making it go to the right, it's because the X is a lot easier to understand. You'll see why the Y is just a little bit odd. In fact, let me just show you. If we have X be plus 0 and Y be plus 13, you might expect if we plus the Y by 13, it goes 13 up, right? That's a higher number, it's a higher place. But if you notice on the screen here, where by my cursor you have X is 123 and Y is 46, and as I move up, Y is going down, and as I go down, Y goes up. Yeah, it's inverted. So let's hit run real quick. If I do a W now, with Y getting plus 13, it moves it 13 pixels downwards. I'm going to press and hold it now. Reset. So I didn't want to start with the Y because I wanted it to be a little more clear to see what happens. Alright, so here's why I did X and Y even though I'm only changing one of them. The reason is because we're not going to keep these 4 lines of code here. This is not a good place for it because what we're going to have to do is copy and paste it to each part, and it just gets weird. So instead, I want you to go to the green functions toolbox. And I want you to drag this second block out there to the top. And that's going to be for define a function with parameters. Now, go up here to the function, and I want you to change the name of it from my function to something a bit more descriptive. I'm going to call mine translate. Translate being the mathematical word for moving a shape on a grid. You can call your function many different things. One little rule, though, and I'm going to show you what you should not do. Do not call it move, okay? Do not call the function move. I'll show you why later, but for now, just trust me, do not name it move. You're going to have problems. Alright, so after you've named the function, I want you to click on the little right arrow here that's next to that. So that way now you have 2 white boxes here after your function name. And again, I press this right arrow key. These arrow keys control how many parameters your function has. A parameter is data given to your function when your function is used, or as we usually refer to it, called. I'd like you to name the two parameters by typing in first, for the first box, vertical, and for the second box, horizontal. For vertical, you know, up and down, and horizontal, left and right, like the horizon. Alright, so right there we have function, translate, vertical, horizontal. Perfect. Now you know those 4 lines you had where you got var x, var y to get the x position, y position of the hero, so on and so forth? I want you to select all 4 of those by clicking on this white space and dragging your cursor to get all 4 of them. Or you can drag one at a time. Whatever you do, just drag all 4 of those lines to your function. So that way, as you can see, the green function for translate has those 4 lines there. And these lines don't have any of the old code that they had. At least these 4. Alright, now, so as you might guess, we're going to change the set properties here, because here's the thing. Moving is going to be the same pretty much always. This is the best use of a function. It's repetitive actions with minor degrees of difference. For instance, all 4 keys, W, A, S, and D, should move the box either up or down or left or right. It should move it in some direction. And the process is actually remarkably similar. Basically, the idea is this. You get the current X position of the hero. You get the current Y position of the hero. You change the X position of the hero to be what it was, to what it was plus however far it's supposed to move horizontally. So see how I changed this line here? Set property of hero, its X property to X plus horizontal. And then do the same thing for Y, but instead be vertical. And right there you have made a function that moves our hero. Alright, now let's actually use this function. I want you to take this from the green functions box, hover over the one for my function with an N next to it. It says call a function with parameters. I want you to grab that and drag it into the first W, or for the first if event key equals W. Just drag it right in there. Whatever you named your function up here, I want you to write that name into this box here. So for me, I called mine translate, and I did spell it right. Okay, good. And that's what I'm going to write here. Then I'm going to press the right arrow key here, so that way we have 2 boxes. And so this is going to determine how much up or down it moves and how much left or right it moves. Well, right away, I know I'm not going to move horizontally at all if I'm pressing W. Take a look at your keyboard. You'll see W's at the top, so that should move it up. That's not left or right. Last I checked, up is not left or right. So, in the box that corresponds with horizontal, that should be the second box. See how my box up here at the top has horizontal as the second option? And down here at the function call, it's the second box here. Put a 0 there. We're not moving horizontally. However, let's say for now I want to move 13. Alright, let's go ahead and run this. And let's just make sure that worked. It's not going to work logically, but it will at least have an effect. Let's see what happens. Alright, let's run it. And just like before when we tested it with adding to Y, you're going to see it go down. So let's translate it 13 pixels. And W. W. Press it again. Press and hold. So you can see it translates our box 13 pixels downwards. And if you hold it down, it'll do it repeatedly. Alright, let's go and reset. Alright, so that almost worked, but let's change that 13 to a, you might guess it, negative 13. Just put a little minus sign before it, and you're all good. Let's run it again, see how it works. And W, W, and press and hold. Perfect. Alright, reset. Alright, so right there, we now have a function that we can call. Now, it might seem like some extra work to create a function, but honestly, it's just good programming practice to do it. Because now, we can more easily go to the Functions toolbox and drag that call a function with parameters block into each of these. And it's that much easier now to just fill in the name of our function. And then change each of the parameters. So for A, we should be going to the left. So that's going to be 0 up and down, and 13 to the left. That's minus. Then for S, we're going to do translate. And S is now below W, right? It's directly below, so that we treat that like it's the down key. So let's press that arrow. All right, so we're going to go 13 down, which is a positive 13, and 0 to the left or right. And lastly, translate with going 0 up or down for the D. D is going to the right. So 0 for vertical and 13 to go positive to the right. So right there I translate -13, 0 for W, 0, -13 for A, 13, 0 for S, and 0, 13 for D. Alright, let's see what happens. I'm going to go here to run it. And W, D, S, and A. And I'm just holding it down for these last few because I feel like it. Now, hold down S and D at the same time. You'll find it doesn't quite work. W and D at the same time. It starts to go to go diagonally, but then it doesn't. That's going to have to be something that you work out later. We might do another lesson including that one. I'm not going to do it today though, just because again, I just want to give you an introduction to using event keys, not necessarily go deep into how to really use them. Alright, let's reset. Okay, so now we have this little box and stuff where this box can move around the screen using the arrow keys. Now I don't want to just finish up there, I want to give you something to actually do with this. So if you just wanted arrow key movement, you can go ahead and check out here. However, if you want to see this to the end, you know, have a little game here, stick around please. Alright, so the whole goal here is to have this hero cross the finish line, which we'll consider a win. So let's go to the Design tab, and we're going to make a new screen. So go down to where we have our screen selector. That's that drop down list at the top of the phone. And we're going to do a new screen. I want you to change the ID of this one. I really think it's a good idea to change IDs and variable names to be descriptive as much as possible. So ID, we're going to call this the win screen, and I've camel cased it just to make it easier to read. Remember, camel case is where we don't put spaces in there, but each new word is a capital letter. Alright, so win screen, the background color, we can click on this little white box here, and let's make it blue. I'll just drag that slider, make it blue. Alright, cool. And then, don't want to spend too much time on design, so let's drag a label out here. This is going to be win. We're going to change the text color to be just black. Background color. No, we don't need a background color. Let's change the font family. Yeah. And the font size. There we go. Put it in the center of the screen. Perfect. Alright, that looks good to me. Let's go back to our main screen, which is looking a little plain now, so let's go ahead and change its background color too. I'm going to give it a nice light red. I feel like a very light red is a good color for it. No. There we go. Okay, cool. Nice light red / pink. I think that looks good. All right, so now we have two screens. We got main and we got windscreen. Things of beauty, I tell you. All right, let's go back to code. And let's do the fun part. All right, so we want a way to see if the player has won or not. Now, sometimes you might do this in a separate function. I'm not going to, but let's just go into what we want. So let's run the program again. And let's control the box. So I said the point was to get this hero over the finish line. So that would mean that if we go down, that would be winning, right? You get it past the finish line. So basically what we want is when the Y position of the hero is below the Y position of this finish line, that's when we should go to the win screen. So let's write that condition in here. Now, I'm going to first do it separate from everything. So I'm just going to go to the control box here. Scroll down until I find if. And we could just do the one single block if statement. I'm going to drag that out, put it at the top of the screen. Let's do a math box little block. Find the greater than sign, please. Drag that into the if statement's condition. So here's what we're going to do. If UI controls, go to that toolbox again, scroll down, and okay, here we are. If get Y position of the hero is greater than, remember, the lower you go, the bigger the Y. So we want a bigger Y than the finish line's Y. So we're going to do get Y position of hero if get Y position of hero is greater than get Y position of finish line. Then let's go down here. We want to set the screen to the win screen. That most basically is what we want, right? Now the question is this going to work? And the answer is no. It's a hard no. This is not going to work. I'm going to show you it so that way you believe me. Hit run. Let's do this. Go down to the bottom of the screen. And it's not working, is it? Here's why. This code is only called once. Once when the program first begins. And if I reset it and run, you'll notice that when the program first begins, the hero is nowhere close to the finish line. So it doesn't execute. And it's not going to recheck it every time we move the character. So here's what we do. I want you to grab that if statement, the if block. I want you to drag it to the bottom of your translation function. So that way now, whatever movement function you wrote now has get X, get Y, set X, set Y, and then this if statement, because that's when you really want to check and see if the hero has crossed the finish line. You're only checking it if the hero has moved. If the hero hasn't moved, he hasn't crossed the finish line. That's very much a way to put the if statement in such a way that it works without making it too complicated. There are, of course, other ways you could do it. You could do things based on timing or some such, but that's honestly a lot more complicated than we need it to be. This works great. So here it is. Whenever the hero moves, it's going to find out its X, find out its Y. It's going to change its X, change its Y as necessary, and then see if it's crossed the finish line. Let's see that. I'm going to go to run and go down to the bottom of the screen until I cross that finish line and I win. I'll show you again. Reset and run. Boom. Flawless. So that right there works pretty well. Makes a very basic game in which we have the hero cross a finish line. Now that right there, now I'm not going to say that's not like a good game. I mean, it's a thing of beauty, but I think we can make it better. Let's do one last little thing here. I want you to go to the variables toolbox, and I want you to drag out two new var x equals whatevers here. And I want you to change the variables to be var start x and var start y. The idea is going to be we're going to get the hero start and end starting coordinates for x and y. I want you to set them to. Remember, anything that's not inside a function or an on event is executed once at the beginning of the program. So let's go to UI controls, scroll down to the get X position, get Y position, drop them in there. Of course, get X position for the start X. It's going to get the X position of hero, get Y position of hero for start Y. So that way now, throughout the whole program, we have a start X and a start Y that holds the starting values for our hero. Now, why did I do that? Well, here's the thing. The big thing about a game should be its replayability. The ability to play the game and then restart it without closing everything and turning it back on. So let's do that. We're going to have a new function. This new function, you know what, I know an easier way to start this off. Sorry about that. Don't drag a new function. Instead, go to Design, change to the win screen. Now let's drag a button there below the win, that beautiful win sign. And I want you to change that button to again, as in the ID. Text is going to be play again. And the idea is going to be when the user presses this play again button, it's going to take them back to the main screen and it's going to put the hero back to where he was. So let's see that in execution. Go back to the code tab and UI controls on event, drag it wherever, doesn't really matter. So on the event that again is clicked, then set the screen to main. Now let's see that in action. It's not going to work, but let's see it in action. Hit run, go down, win, play again, takes us back to this screen. Our hero's still down here, so the moment that we move anywhere, it's going to say win again. Yeah, you notice how that's not really replayability, is it? I mean, we're going back to the main screen like we told it, but we didn't reset the position. So walks in, start X and start Y. Let's go to UI controls toolbox, and you could use the set position, but you notice I've been avoiding it because the set position command also changes width and height, and it just gets too complicated. So we're not going to do that. Instead, let's drag out two set properties. We're going to set the hero back to his or her starting coordinates X and Y. So it's set property hero X, set property hero Y, and then for the values, it's going to be start X and start Y. So those are the two variables that you create when the program begins. They don't get changed except for when you first press run. So they always stay as what the hero was originally. Let's reset and run it. As you can see, I can run across the finish line, hit play again, and I'm back to where I started. And with this, we actually have some replayability. Now, it's not a very exciting game, but it is replayable. It does show you keyboard, and hopefully that gives you a nice start into just understanding more about computer input and output. Before we go, I did make a promise, and I'm going to keep that promise. That promise was to tell you why you should not name that function move. Let's go ahead and try that. Or don't try that. Just watch me do it, because you really shouldn't do this. Alright, so we can name this thing move, and it changes the function name. So cool, it's working. That means each of these function calls would have to be move, and we'll change the first one, and then go to the second. Ooh, wait a minute. What's that? Why did it turn blue? That's odd. Well, whatever, let's just change each of them. Ignore the fact that each of them are turning blue. And after you've done that, well, that's a little odd, isn't it? They weren't blue before. Let's reset this and run it, and you'll find it may work, it may not work. I've had both do it. So it's like, it might work if you call it, but it might not. And the reason is there is already this turtle toolbox, which we haven't touched, that has a move in it with an X and a Y coordinate. If you have two competing functions with the same name, or a competing function is a function with the same name. So when you have two functions with the same name, there can be some confusion about which one the computer uses. So that's why, reset, that's why I don't think you should use move as your function name. It's not guaranteed to work. And I'm undoing each of those to turn it back. Alright, well, that settles that one. We've made a flawless, perfect Game of the Year type game. It's excellent, it's beautiful. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day.